Hi, I'm Dee with Modesty Matters. We're a business dedicated to providing products for modest-minded families. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you to make this adorable Pioneer apron that goes with our Pioneer dress. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is lay our pattern out on the material. Now, I have my material laid out in such a way that I have my selvage over here, and I have my fold right here next to me. Now, I've printed out two of my big pattern pieces because I have the back over here, and then this line you'll follow for the front piece, and you'll have that piece right here against the fold of the material. See right here where it says front place on fold? I'm putting that right against the material, and you'll disregard that over here for the back piece because you're going to cut the back piece out right there, right along that line. Now I've got my shoulder ruffle. If you're wanting to use the shoulder ruffle, here's your piece, and you're going to actually cut 4 of those out. Now you'll cut those out against the fold also, so that it'll be like this. 1, move it over, 2, 3, and 4 of those. Now, this goes against the fold, so you're not going to cut here. You're going to cut like this, right like here, right down there, and stop. Alright, once we've cut our pieces out, our big pieces here out, we're going to follow this line, and we're going to trim that off and trim that off, and we're going to use those pieces for our lining, but I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, this is our front piece, the piece that's on the fold. I've got it pinned on now. I'm going to cut here, all the way up here, around like this, and I'm going to stop right here because I'm not going to cut this line. That's going to be right down the center front of our apron. Okay, here's my front piece. Now remember, I cut all the way around like this, and I stopped right here. I did not cut along the fold here. Now I'm going to cut my back piece. And remember, the back piece follows this line. Now notice I've pulled this over a little bit so it's not cutting the selvage into our piece. We're going to cut the selvage out. And this piece we're going to cut all the way around, including this over here. Now remember, I've cut out all the way around this apron back because our apron opens in the back. I'm going to take out our pins, and now I'm going to trim our pattern piece right along here in order to make our lining. And now on our front piece I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim out our lining. Have my pattern pieces laid out for the lining of our apron. Here's my back piece, and I'm going to pin this on, and I'm going to cut all the way around it. Here's my front piece. Again, I have this laid against the fold of my material, and I'm not going to cut along this line right here. Alright, here are our pattern pieces all cut out for our lining. I'm going to place these pieces right sides together, just like this. And I'm going to pin these at the shoulder. Now I've pinned these at the shoulders, and you'll notice the back pieces overlap. That is exactly right. They are supposed to overlap. Alright, I'm going to start in needle down position at 5/8 inch, which is this marking right here. I'm going to have the raw edge go right along that line, and as always I'm going to start back up to set that seam. Alright, just like we did with the lining, we're going to lay our pieces for the apron together, right sides together. We're going to pin them at the shoulder, and we're going to straight stitch right along each shoulder. Again, it's going to overlap in the back, and that's what it's supposed to do at this point. So let's take that to the machine. In needle down position. And I always remove my pins so that I don't break needles. This is for the ruffles on our apron. I've taken our ruffle pieces and I've laid them all four pieces right sides together, and I've pinned them around the curve. Now I'm going to take these to the machine and I'm going to straight stitch them right along here at 5/8 inch. Okay, both of needle down position. Right, now that I've straight stitched this all the way around this curve, I'm going to trim it just like I did over here, carefully as close as I can to that stitch line without actually cutting through. Okay, I've trimmed both of these close to the stitch line. That's going to help them turn nicely for me. I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to press them, and this is going to set that seam. I'm going to turn them and press them again. Same thing on the other one. Alright, now we're going to gather these. What I've done is, so that later on I can line the very center of these up with the shoulder seam, I folded it in half and I've just put a little line there with the iron on both of these. You're going to need a needle and double thread with a knot at the end. And I am just going to gather these just exactly like we did the Pioneer dress. This is just hand gathering. I'm just feeding the needle. Like that. Just go all the way across the top here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and knot this, and I'll do the exact same thing on the other ruffle. Okay, I have my apron laid out here with the right sides facing me. In other words, that seam is down below. I'm taking my ruffle, and that crease that I pressed into it, I'm lining that crease up with that shoulder seam and I'm pinning it right there. I'm going to do that on both sides. Alright, now I'm taking my hem ruler and I'm going to measure 1.5 inches from that shoulder seam. I'm going to put a pin there just to keep my place. And I'm going to do that on the other side, because that's exactly where I want my ruffle to stop. I'm going to do the same thing now on the other ruffle. At this point, I'm going to gather now. I'm going to take my thread that I loosely basted in there, and I'm just going to pull it and I'm going to make some really nice gathers. I'm going to pin them in place right here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to pin it in place right there. Alright, now beginning in needle down position, I'm going to straight stitch this at 5/8 inch. Okay, now taking our lining pieces, I'm taking them to the ironing board, and I'm going to have the wrong side up. I'm going to fold up and press 1/4 of an inch all the way along. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to roll up again 1/4 of an inch, press it, and pin it. Alright, now I pin this in place. I'm going to do the same thing now to our back pieces. I'm going to fold them up 1/4 of an inch, fold them up another 1/4 of an inch, and pin them in place. Okay, starting in needle down position, I'm going to zigzag stitch all the way along this hem that I've created on this lining. Alright, now I'm going to zigzag stitch both of these back hems. Alright, now that we've finished preparing our lining, we're going to sandwich together our pieces right here. First, let me trim this and pull out that green basting thread that I put in there. With right sides together, I'm going to lay this down. Now notice my ruffle is inside, just like this. And I'm going to pin it in place. Starting at my shoulder seams, lining those up nicely. And then I'm going to pin the rest of the way around the neck. Now I'm going to pin around my armhole. Again, I'm going to start at the shoulder seam, lining that up nicely, and pin through there. Then I'll continue pinning around the armhole. Alright, now I'm going to stitch all the way around our neck and all the way around our armholes. Alright, I'm starting at the back and I'm doing our neck seam first. In needle down position, and I'm going to sew a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, now our armhole is going to be the same way. We're going to have, of course, sew at 5/8 inch, starting in needle down position. I have stitched all the way around my neck, all the way around my arm openings. Normally, I would go back now and I would cut notches all the way around these severe curves like this, if this were heavier material. Now, often muslin is very, very thin material, so I'm not going to do that because we'll have a lot of fraying. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my piece right side out. To do that, note I have my opening back here. I'm going to reach in right here. I'm going to grab this piece. I'm going to push it up under, inside. And see, there's my fingers. I'm grabbing that with my fingers and I'm pulling it through. Just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to push my fingers through. See, there are my fingers. I'm going to take this piece, grab that with my fingers, and I'm going to pull it through. There we have it. Now, I need to take it to the iron and press this so that it lays nicely. Okay, note that I have my piece turned inside out. Now we're going to stitch our side seams. I'm going to take the lining and I'm going to pull it up just like this, and I'm going to pin it, line it up perfectly, pin it right there, right along the edge, all the way down. Then we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to straight stitch it at 5/8 inch all the way down. Alright, note now I'm starting at the lining and I'm going to stitch all the way down. And I'm going to do that at 5/8 inch, like always, getting a needle down position. Now that I've stitched all the way down this seam, I'm going to come back and I'm going to zigzag right along the edge to finish that seam nicely and keep it from fraying. And I've finished both of these side seams. Now I've turned the interfacing back down and I've pressed it, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a straight stitch and I'm just going to go right along here just to tack that in place. What it's called tacking it. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Right, as you notice, what I've done is lined up this seam so it comes down perfectly. Needle down position. And I'm just going to do a straight stitch right down along that, just one seam. Alright, now this is the inside of our back. I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to press it 1/2 inch all the way up the back. I'm going to open that lining and I'm going to continue that right on up, pressing that 1/2 inch right up the back of that. Now I'm going to take my lining and I'm going to turn it over just like this. So it's inside out now. I'm going to pin it right there. Now I'm going to pin it right here. And I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to straight stitch right down along that raw edge, very close to the edge. Alright, here I am in needle down position. And I'm not stitching at 5/8 inch, I'm just stitching right along that raw edge. Now here's the part we just stitched right along there. We're going to turn this right side out. First I'm going to clip the corner though, so that it'll turn nicely for me. I'm going to poke that corner out. Very carefully so I don't poke through the material. There it is, very nicely done. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come right back up here and I'm going to straight stitch starting up here at the beginning, and I'm going to go right down the back of our apron, right along that fold. Needle down position. I'm at 5/8 inch. and I'm going to go right along that fold. Alright, now that we've stitched the back of our apron on both sides, we're going to go on to the hem. To do the hem, I'm going to open my piece up. I'm going to fold it in 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to press all the way along the bottom. Alright, now that I've pressed up 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to come back again and I'm going to press again 1/2 an inch this time. I'm going to pin it, then we're going to take it to the machine and straight stitch it. Of course, starting in needle down position. We're going to straight stitch the entire hem. We're going to straight stitch this entire hem right along the inner fold. Okay, our Pioneer apron has a button and buttonhole on the back of it. So I'm going to teach you how to make a buttonhole using your zigzag stitch in your sewing machine. I'm obviously going to be using contrasting thread so that you can see very clearly what is happening here. Now, on a scrap piece of material, and I really want you to practice several times before you commit this to a garment that you're going to wear. On your scrap material, find the spot that you're going to need the button to be. I'm going to place my button directly over that spot. I'm going to make a mark at the top and a mark at the bottom, just like that. Now I'm going to draw a line between the two. And I know that that is where I need my buttonhole. Now I'm going to make a rectangle on the outside all the way around this, exactly in the shape that I'm going to want my buttonhole to be. So this is exactly where I want my buttonhole to be, all the way around those marks that I made. Now you are going to be using your zigzag stitch, and you're going to want a narrow zigzag stitch as opposed to a big wide one that you would use, for instance, when you're finishing a seam. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is lower my needle so that it's just to the left of the left line. And I'm going to lower my presser foot, and I'm going to begin stitching. I'm going to go straight down to the end of the line right here. Now my zigzag is going to go on both sides of that line. Now I'm going to stop when I come to the end of that, and I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to follow the line on this way. I'm going to stop again. I'm going to pivot. Now remember, when I'm pivoting with my needle down. And now I'm going to zigzag straight up that line. I'm going to stop at the top of that, and I'm going to pivot again. All right. Okay, so here's your buttonhole. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our scissors and we're going to clip out from here to here. And that's where our button is going to fit through. Be very careful not to clip your threads though. Okay, here we have it. And then you always check to make sure, does my button fit through here nice and securely, snugly? And it does. There you go. That's how you make a buttonhole using your zigzag stitch. All right, now we're going to apply that zigzag buttonhole technique to our apron. Here I have my apron laid out, and I've taken my button and I've marked exactly where I want it to be. I've marked it on both pieces. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to center that right here. I'm going to mark above and I'm going to mark below, just like we talked about. I'm going to draw a line in between. And I'm going to make my buttonhole right there. Then I'm going to take my button and I'm going to stitch it right here, right over the mark that I made for that button. All right, now we need to put our button on. I have my needle and my double thread knotted at the end. All right, I've marked exactly where I want my button to go, and I'm going to place that button right over that. Now I've done several rounds in these two holes. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to do several rounds in the other two holes, giving it an X. There we go. Now I'm going to come underneath and I'm going to do a knot. You know, the easiest way to knot is to just simply cut your thread off like this, open it up, and start making your knots. Just start knotting it off like this. You can come up with your own way of knotting off your thread. I've just found this to be the simplest. And then I clip my thread, and I'm all done. Here it is. Congratulations, you've done it. This adorable Pioneer apron that goes right along with our Pioneer dress. Now don't forget to complete your look with our how-to kits for mop cap, bonnet, and bloomers. Thanks for joining us today. Join us again for other great how-to projects.